I'd always wanted a cat. I grew up on a farm, and there were always plenty of cats around. But my parents never let me have one. They said that cats were too independent and that they didn't make good pets. But as an adult, I was finally able to get a cat of my own. I went to the local animal shelter and adopted a small black cat. I named him Shadow. Shadow was a great cat. He was affectionate and playful. He loved to cuddle with me on the couch and play with his toys. But after a few weeks, I started to notice some strange things about Shadow. He would stare at me for long periods of time with his eyes glowing red. He would also make strange noises like growling and hissing. I started to get scared of Shadow, but I didn't want to give him up. I thought that maybe he was just adjusting to his new home. But then, one night, I woke up to find Shadow standing on my chest. His eyes were glowing red, and he was snarling at me. I screamed and pushed him off of me. Shadow ran out of the room and hid under the bed. I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. I got out of bed and went to the kitchen. I poured myself a glass of wine and tried to calm down. I told myself that I was just imagining things, that I was probably stressed out from work. But then, I heard a noise behind me. I turned around and saw Shadow standing in the doorway. His eyes were still glowing red, and he was snarling at me. I screamed and ran out of the house. I spent the night at my friend's house. The next morning, I went back to my house to get my things. Shadow was nowhere to be found. I searched the whole house, but I couldn't find him. I called the animal shelter and told them what had happened. They said that they would send someone to my house to look for Shadow, but the animal shelter never called me back. I never saw Shadow again, but I still think about him all the time. I wonder what happened to him, and I wonder if he was really possessed by a demon. I still have nightmares about Shadow. In my nightmares, he is chasing me and trying to hurt me.
Next story.
I'd always been a bit superstitious. I believed in ghosts, spirits, and reincarnation, but I never thought that I would experience anything supernatural firsthand. That all changed when I met my ex-girlfriend, Sarah. Sarah was a beautiful and mysterious woman. She had long black hair and piercing green eyes. She was also incredibly intelligent and witty. I was immediately smitten with her. We fell in love quickly and deeply, but our relationship was not without its problems. Sarah was very possessive and jealous. She would always accuse me of cheating on her, even when I wasn't. One day, I had enough. I broke up with Sarah. She was devastated. She begged me to take her back, but I refused. Sarah never forgave me. She started to stalk me. She would follow me to work and home from work. She would call me and text me constantly. I tried to ignore her, but she wouldn't go away. One night I was walking home from work when I saw Sarah standing in the shadows. She was wearing a long black dress, and her hair was covering her face. I started to walk faster, but Sarah followed me. I turned a corner and ran down an alleyway. I hoped that I could lose her, but Sarah was faster. She cornered me in the alleyway. She glared at me with her piercing green eyes. "You will pay for what you did to me," she said. Sarah raised her hand and pointed at me. I felt a sharp pain in my chest. I looked down and saw a black cat sitting on my chest. The cat's eyes were glowing red. I screamed and pushed the cat off of me. The cat ran into the shadows. I fell to the ground, gasping for breath. I looked up and saw Sarah standing over me. She was smiling cruelly. "That's just the beginning," she said. Sarah turned and walked away. I lay on the ground for a long time, trying to process what had just happened. I didn't know what to think. But I knew one thing for sure. I was in danger. The next day, I woke up to find a black cat sitting on my bed. The cat's eyes were glowing red. I screamed and jumped out of bed. The cat ran off. I knew that it was the same cat that had attacked me in the alleyway. I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. I called the police and told them what had happened. They said that they would send someone to my house to investigate. But when the police arrived, they couldn't find the cat. They told me that I was probably just imagining things. I knew that I wasn't imagining things. I started to see the cat everywhere I went. It would follow me to work, to the grocery store, and even to my home. I was starting to lose my mind. I couldn't sleep or eat. I was a prisoner in my own home. One night, I was walking home from work when I saw Sarah standing in the shadows. She was wearing a long black dress, and her hair was covering her face. I started to run, but Sarah was faster. She cornered me in an alleyway. "This is the end for you," she said. Sarah raised her hand and pointed at me. I felt a sharp pain in my chest. I looked down and saw the black cat sitting on my chest. The cat's eyes were glowing red. I screamed and tried to push the cat off of me, but it was too strong. The cat started to scratch and bite me. I felt my life slipping away. I closed my eyes and waited for the end. But the end never came. When I opened my eyes, the cat was gone, and Sarah was gone. I lay on the ground for a long time, trying to process what had just happened. I didn't know what to think, but I knew one thing for sure. I was alive. I got up and walked home. I never saw Sarah or the black cat again, but I still think about them all the time. I wonder if Sarah is really gone, and I wonder if the black cat was really the reincarnation of my ex-girlfriend.
Next story.
I always loved cats. They were mysterious and independent, and I admired their strength and grace. But I never realized just how powerful they could be until I got my cat, Salem. Salem was a black cat with piercing green eyes. He was a stray that I found one day outside my apartment. He was thin and dirty, but he had a spark in his eyes that told me he was special. I took Salem in and gave him a bath and a good meal. He quickly settled into his new home, and we became best friends. Salem was a very curious cat. He loved to explore every nook and cranny of my apartment. One day I was watching TV when I saw Salem staring at the wall. He was focused on a spot that I had never noticed before. I got up and went to investigate. I didn't see anything unusual, but Salem was still staring at the spot. I reached out and touched the wall. It was just a regular wall. But then, something strange happened. The wall started to ripple and shimmer. A portal opened up, revealing a swirling vortex of darkness. I was frozen in fear. I didn't know what to do. Salem jumped into the portal and disappeared. I waited for what felt like an eternity, but Salem didn't come back. Finally, I gathered my courage and stepped through the portal. I found myself in a strange and alien world. The sky was a sickly green color, and the ground was covered in a thick layer of black goo. I called out for Salem, but there was no answer. I started to walk through the alien world, hoping to find Salem. But the more I walked, the more lost I became. I was starting to lose hope when I saw Salem in the distance. He was running towards me. I was so relieved to see him. I ran to him and scooped him up in my arms. "I'm so glad you're okay," I said. Salem meowed and rubbed his head against my chest. I looked around for the portal, but it was gone. I was trapped in the alien world. I started to walk, hoping to find a way back home, but the more I walked, the more lost I became. Suddenly, I heard a noise behind me. I turned around and saw a creature approaching. It was tall and thin, with pale skin and sunken eyes. It had a long, sharp tail and jagged claws. I screamed and ran, but the creature was faster. It caught up to me and grabbed me by the arm. I struggled to break free, but the creature was too strong. The creature raised its claws and prepared to strike. But then Salem jumped in front of me and hissed at the creature. The creature hesitated for a moment, then turned and fled. Salem had saved my life. I hugged Salem tightly. "Thank you," I said. Salem meowed and licked my face. We continued to walk through the alien world, searching for a way back home. Days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months. We were starting to lose hope. But then, one day, we saw it in the distance, the portal. We ran to the portal and stepped through. We were back in my apartment. I was so relieved to be home. I hugged Salem tightly. "Thank you," I said. Salem meowed and rubbed his head against my chest.
As a huge support, please hit like, subscribe, and maybe share your thought or any experience before going to watch another video. Thank you so much. Have a good day.